Speaking here on the nature of republics versus oligarchies or dictatorships, Mr. Spencer has this to say of the old Roman Republic. How institutions are wrongly classed from this cause we see in the common notion that the Roman Republic was a popular form of government. Look into the early ideas of the French revolutionists who aimed at an ideal state of freedom, and you find that the political forms and deeds of the Romans were their models. And even now a historian might be named who instances the corruptions of the Roman Republic, and showing us what popular government leads to. Yet the resemblance between the institutions of the Romans and free institutions properly so called was less than that between a shark and a porpoise, a resemblance of general external form accompanying widely different internal structures. For the Roman government was that of a small oligarchy within a larger oligarchy, the members of each being unchecked autocrats, a society in which the relatively few men who had political power and were in a qualified sense free were so many petty despots holding not only slaves and dependents but even children in a bondage no less absolute than that in which they held their cattle, was by its intrinsic nature more nearly allied to an ordinary despotism than to a society of citizens politically equal. Passing now to our special question, we may understand the kind of confusion in which liberalism has lost itself, and the origin of those mistaken classings of political measures which have misled it. Classings, as we shall see, by conspicuous external traits instead of their internal natures. And here Mr. Spencer points out the general attitude of most leftists and Democrats quite effectively, I think. He says, quote, "For what, in the popular apprehension and in the apprehension of those who affected them, were the changes made by liberals in the past? They were abolitions of grievances suffered by the people or by portions of them. This was the common trait they had which most impressed itself on men's minds. They were mitigations of evils which had directly or indirectly been felt by large classes of citizens as causes to misery or as hindrances to happiness. And since in the minds of most a rectified evil is equivalent to an achieved good, these measures came to be thought of as so many positive benefits, and the welfare of the many came to be conceived alike by liberal statesmen and liberal voters as the aim of liberalism. Hence the confusion. The gaining of a popular good being the external conspicuous trait common to liberal measures in earlier days, then in each case gained by a relaxation of restraints, it has happened that popular good has come to be sought by liberals not as an end to be indirectly gained by relaxations of restraints, but as the end to be directly gained, and seeking to gain it directly, they have used methods intrinsically opposed to those originally used." And that's absolutely correct, because today's so-called liberals and progressives are anything but. They are regressives, and they're the antithesis of liberty, to be quite honest. So, really, when they call themselves liberals, they're using a misnomer. We libertarians usually call ourselves classical liberals, meaning that we believe in freedom, in liberty, meaning that we believe in relaxing the restraints of government on the people. We believe in setting the people free. Well, that's not the aim of the typical Democrat today. They want more government intrusion. They want more government control. They want more government authority. And this all stems from a belief that somehow the government can be a moral institution, or that it can have any intrinsic authority or values of its own, which it cannot, unfortunately. You know, in one of the debates that I was just recently in, Mrs. Norlin, a Democratic candidate, said that institutions, and she was speaking of religious institutions and community institutions, cannot be innately moral. And I said, well, that's very true, when I was given the chance to speak. And government is just another institution. Therefore, we should be on our guard constantly about any advances in government power or any grabs for authority by any particular branch, especially the executive or the courts, because they're furthest away from the people. At least if our own representatives had the power, then we could somewhat affect the course of events and the political structure in a direct way. But now, when we're given two choices for president, and either one of them is a statist in the first degree and wants to advance the power of his own agenda or his special interest contributors, well, then basically we are saddled with a 4-year or 8-year dictatorship, and then once it's over, we can choose another 4-year or 8-year dictatorship with a slightly different name or flavor to it. So, once again, I'm reminded of why I entered in politics in the first place. I'm here to bring the power back to the representatives of the people, and by extension, the people themselves. So, if you want someone who understands the difference between individuals in government and government itself as some kind of mythological being, then I'd say that you should vote for me and feel safe in the knowledge that I'm not going to submit or surrender any of my power as a representative, and in fact I'm going to encourage others to reclaim our rightful role. Well, thanks for listening, neighbors. I'm really enjoying this book, by the way, and I'm going to continue to read it. Mr. Spencer is a very scholarly man with a very scholarly writing style, and I've always been interested in reading works from different people just to see how they process information and interpret it, how they chronicle it for others to interpret. Very interesting world of literature out there, folks. I recommend you tap into it from time to time. Thanks for listening. God bless.